Hello all and welcome back to the PragatiE Vichaar Poetry Festival's third edition. Today we are going to talk about a really interesting subject called haiku poetry, in which we are having an esteemed set of panelists, starting off with Kynpham Sing, who writes poetry, drama, and fiction in Khasi and English. His latest works include the epic length novel Funeral Nights, The Yearning of Seeds, Times Barter, Haiku, and Sinri, and Around the Hearth. Khasi legends. His poem and stories have been published on national and international platforms. He has won many awards, including the Northeast Poetry Award 2004.
Sure.
Infamji, it's an honor to host you today.
Hello.
Now, second on the panel, we are having Rimi Nath, who writes poems, haiku, short fiction, and scholarly essays. She is the author of Kushiara and the other poems. Her poems and haiku have appeared in several national and international publications. She teaches literature at Northeastern Hill University. Rimiji, it's an honor to be able to host you today.
Thank you.
And last but not the least, we are having Mr. Dinesh Raheja, who is an author, journalist, screenplay writer, and poet for the last 34 years. Wrote his first Hindi poem, Godhope, at the age of 12. His poem in Hindi and English have been published in Midday, The Daily, in The Map, and The New Indian Express. Raheja ji's first attempt at haiku. He is a huge admirer of Japanese haiku master Matsuo Basho. Dinesh ji, it's wonderful to have you here today.
Thank you.
So now, as we are done with the introduction round, so let's start off with the questions. So my first question to all of you would be: so can you share some insights into the unique characteristics of haiku and senryu, and how do they differ from other forms of poetry? Rimiji, why don't you start first?
Okay, so haiku is a Japanese form of poetry, and traditionally it was written in 17 syllables, arranged in three unrhymed lines of 575 syllables. So now this meter is no longer followed strictly, and we have even one line, two line, or four line haiku. And a haiku is short, it is precise, and it is suggestive. So haiku captures a moment, and nowadays we also see that haiku is more encompassing and embraces our modern existence. But still, we feel that haiku lives in nature. So a little moment like a raindrop or a fly or the moon can be a subject of a haiku. So, and it is also different from other forms of poetry in the sense that a haiku doesn't poeticize or philosophize. It um, it shows and it doesn't tell, it doesn't explain. So it just captures a particular moment.
Hmm. So Dinesh ji, your viewpoint on this?
I think it's a what I call a three-line seduction into arts and aesthetics. It's non-rhyming and it's minimalistic. And still in those few words you have to capture as much as you can. I think it's a beautiful form. I came upon it accidentally. I'd written somebody and somebody told me this is a haiku. So I went back and read on it and then I just adapted it but I follow the 575, though I write in English. As 95% I try to follow, then 5% if I don't want to compromise on what I'm saying, then I use more than 575. But otherwise I follow the 575.
Right. Infamji, your viewpoint on this?
Sorry. Yeah, so let me start by giving you a definition of a haiku according to Chris Baldick, a famous British critic. He says that the haiku is a Japanese lyric that encapsulates a single impression of a single natural object or scene using using unrhymed lines containing 575 syllables, as Rimi had mentioned. So that's a definition by Chris Baldwin. Basho also agrees with him when he says that the haiku focuses on the poet's experience, and he says that the haiku is simply what is happening at this place in this particular moment. But let me also hasten to explain that things have that these definitions, although very appropriate, uh, have undergone some changes. For instance, Chris Baldick talks about how the haiku encapsulates a single impression of a natural object or scene. It is true that even now the haiku resides mostly in nature, but it also reflects the changing times, and it has cast its wise and forgiving eye on many facets of modern life. We can write haiku about anything and everything. And regarding the 575 syllables, that meter is uh, most of the haikuists nowadays do not make use of that meter anymore. They focus, and this is essential, they focus on the fundamental qualities of the haiku. And what are these fundamental qualities? They are brevity, economy, concision, um, simplicity, present tense immediacy, and high suggestiveness. And from where, this is very important, high suggestiveness. And from where does this high suggestiveness come? It comes from the presence of imagery. It comes from the presence of the images. The in a haiku, which is concise and precise, in a haiku, we present a picture. We present a picture. The picture should suggest meanings and insights and thoughts and feelings without telling anything. And therefore, the image, the essence of the image is the metaphor. The image should also be a metaphor. It should suggest metaphorical significances to readers. Um, so, what we are doing now is to focus on the fundamental qualities of the haiku, the essential elements of the haiku. Um, and the other way of describing the essential elements of the haiku is to talk about what Tony Conran, the Welsh poet and critic, said: loneliness, tenderness, and slenderness. So these are the essential elements of the haiku, and these are what we concentrate on when we write our haiku. Thank you.
Hmm. So now that we understand what is haiku actually, so now we want to delve further into process of crafting a haiku. Like what elements do you prioritize and what challenges do you encounter while capturing a moment in the haiku? So Dinesh, why don't you start first?
What I'll say is going to sound very odd, but I used to get two haiku in my mind without having to go through this process. I would be in the washroom and I would get a haiku, and sometimes I would lose a haiku because I could not come out fast enough to scribble. So for me, I mean, I don't know if it sounds stupid or what. I used to just keep getting until I got 150 haiku, and then it's kind of went slow. I picked up 101 from that and approached my publisher, Home Books, and they
Hmm.
said, "Yeah, why not? It sounds good."
Right. Hmm.
So, no, I would like to read out one line I wrote after I finished the book. I threw a bucket. I threw a bucket to draw from the well of words. I threw a bucket to draw from the well of words. There was no haiku. So I ended the book with that.
Wow. So, Remiji, your take on this?
Talking about the process of crafting a haiku, I think there is this setting. We need to have a setting on which the haiku is based, and then comes the heart or the subject of the poem, which is suggestive, and the readers can interpret it. So, talking about my individual process while writing a haiku, I think I am very much aware of beauty, then transience, and the significance or insignificance of our existence. So, and you also asked about what are the challenges of
Right.
writing a haiku. So, I think we often discuss about how deceptive the simplicity of a haiku can be. Sometimes a simple thing can be difficult, and it can be difficult to be simple. And without poeticizing, without philosophizing, how do you convey something that is profound? That is a challenge. Thank you.
Okay. Kynpham, your take on this?
Yeah, I forgot to switch it
Gosh.
on. So you see, when you talk about approaching the process of writing a haiku, you imply something very deliberate, something very intentional. But writing a haiku doesn't work that way. It is a very spontaneous, inspirational
Hmm.
phenomenon. Everything is based on inspiration. And the most important thing about writing a haiku is the image. You see an image. We see many images. We are not inspired by all the images, but there may be an image. You look at it, and instantaneously or instantly, it suggests meanings, it suggests insights to you. And that is when the haiku moment happens. When you look at an image and the image suggests insights to you, it gives you, when the image suggests insights to you, when the image becomes a metaphor, then the haiku moment happens. And you think of how to express this, how to present this image. It has suggested insights to you, it has become a metaphor to you, but how to present this image to the readers and make sure that it also suggests the same kinds of insights to them, that it becomes the same kind of metaphor to them. And as Rimi said, we have to be careful because we cannot make use of any traditional poetic devices. We cannot even use simile. We cannot use personification. We cannot politicize or philosophize. We cannot make use of any of the traditional poetic devices. We just have to present a picture. The picture should speak for itself. It should suggest meanings. But as I said, it is a very spontaneous thing. The image has to suggest insights, then the haiku moment happens, and then the problem comes how to present this image and convey the insights, convey the metaphorical significance to your readers.
Hmm.
Can I add to
Yeah,
this?
please. Please, please.
I'll add to it with a haiku. My mustache is white. My mustache is white. Mountains have a beard of snow. My mustache is white. Mountains have a beard of snow. They will outlive me.
Okay, let me add, Atish.
Yeah,
Let me
please.
give you an example. Let me give you an example of what I mean by an image suggesting an insight to the poet. That's why Basho talks about, the intuitive experience of the poet. I'll quote a haiku from Basho. He says,
Hmm.
cormorant fishing. Now, what do we have here? We have an image. An image. What is the image? The image of a cormorant fishing. It is a wonderful. I don't know if you have seen a cormorant fishing. It's a wonderful sight. I have seen it in real life. It's a wonderful sight. So that is the image, cormorant fishing. But then, as an image in itself, it doesn't become a haiku. It becomes a haiku when it suggests insights, insightful thoughts to the poet. And so, it did that to Basho, and Basho wrote this haiku. He says, cormorant fishing, how stirring, how saddening. I'll repeat this. Cormorant fishing, how stirring, how saddening. So, where are the insightful thoughts? The insightful thoughts are in the lines, how stirring. Why is it stirring? Because it is inspirational, to watch a cormorant fishing. It is beautiful. It is a beautiful thing. It is a stirring thing. It is an inspiring thing because a bird like a cormorant, without the help of technology, can be so effective, can be so capable in earning its own breath, so its own food, its own breath, so to speak. But then, how? Why is it also saddening? Why is it also saddening? It is a beautiful thing. It is a wonderful thing. It is a stirring thing. But why is it also saddening? It is also saddening because to survive in life, whether we are humans or we are birds or we are animals, to survive in life, we have to kill something
Hmm.
else. So, cormorant fishing, the image and the insights, how stirring, how saddening. That's why, the most important thing is the image, and the image should suggest insights.
Hmm. Yeah, thank you so much for all of your invaluable insights. I could, draw out certain similarities and certain distinction between all of your answers. So now I want to specifically discuss about the Indian haiku and its Japanese counterpart. So are there any cultural influences or themes that are particularly prevalent in Indian haiku? So Dinesh, why don't you start first?
I mean, this Meghna Gulzar had come for my book release, and she quoted one haiku by her father Gulzar. It was excellent. I don't remember it now, but I've not read more of it, so I'm not an authority on it. But what he said sounded very much like a haiku, but only in Hindi. But I
Hmm.
don't think, I'm not sure the Hindi one has become so popular. I've not heard too many people talking about it. Or now this English haiku is catching on. There's a place called Haiku Jam where all these youngsters meet and they recite haiku. And they also have a strange thing. One person writes two lines and the third person completes it. So I can't do that, something like that. My haiku has to be mine. So, but about the Hindi haiku, I'm sorry, I am not very knowledgeable.
Sure. So Rimi, your take?
When we say Indian haiku, I think um, any kind of art, poetry, it's also universal. It transcends borders and boundaries. But at the same time, a place or tradition or culture, custom, they also influence our worldview. So, to give you an example, I'd just like to read out a haiku by Kynpham Sing Nongkynrih, and it's never knew bulbuls feeding at dawn, noisy as Khasi funerals. So here you see
Sorry,
that.
I didn't catch you.
Okay, I'm repeating the haiku again. Never knew bulbuls feeding at dawn, noisy as Khasi funerals. So here we have, the culture, the tradition also coming in, which makes it very much a haiku of this place, this location. So yeah, that's my take on this.
Kynpham, your take on this?
Okay, see, when you talk about the form, when you talk about the form of the haiku, uh, there uh, there is a little difference between the Japanese haiku and the rest of the haiku, written in the rest of the world. Why? Because um, for instance, in the Japanese form, we have a character called kireji, Kireji. Kireji. But in the English language and and most of the other languages, we don't have this character. The kireji. What is the function of the kireji? It marks a pause. The kireji marks a pause between the setting of the haiku and the body of the haiku. Okay, and the setting of the haiku is mostly in the first line or the first two lines, and the body of the haiku is on the first two lines or the last line. It depends on what kind of haiku you write. So the kireji marks a pause between the setting and the body of the haiku. But in English and many other languages, we don't have this character. So what do we make? So how do we express this kireji? We make use of the M dash or the colon. Okay, so that's a slight difference in form. Although nowadays, many haikuists do not make use of either kireji or its equivalents, meaning the em dash or the colon. So what do? They express their setting and their thoughts on the setting in such a manner that the two parts are clearly differentiated from each other. Uh, but if so, that's the form. But if we stop talking about the form and we talk about the essence of the haiku, we talk about the fundamental qualities of the haiku, then there can be no difference between a Japanese haiku and a haiku written in any other languages of the world. Because you remember we said that the fundamental elements of a haiku are brevity, economy, concision, simplicity, present tense immediacy, and high suggestiveness. So in that sense, there cannot be a difference. And further, um, when we talk about a haiku, in this anthology of ours, it is an anthology of Indian haikus, Indian haiku. Um, um, it is an anthology of Indian haiku. The form is Japanese. The haiku are written by Indian poets. So if you read the introduction of our book, Late Blooming Cherries, you will find that we describe the haiku in the book as Japanese in form, but typically Indian in themes, typically Indian in themes, and universally human. So the themes are typically Indian, but they also have a universal application. For instance, I will read a poem by Muskan Ahuja. I'm very thankful to Rimi for illustrating this point with my own haiku. Now I would like to illustrate the same point by using Muskan Ahuja's haiku. She says, temple visit, temple visit, ants on the wall, ants on the wall, returning with prasad, returning with prasad. Now, this is a Japanese form. It has it has an Indian cultural theme, but it also has universal application. The relationship between man and God, between man and his religious rituals. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so
I
much.
I
Yeah.
just remembered, I think what they call it in Hindi is Triveni. And the one about Gulzar was about, he said, he used the Indian context. It was about a leaking ceiling. It was dripping water. So that happens a lot in our country.
Hmm. Right. So with that, I come to the individual questions now. So my first question to be would be to Mr. Dinesh Raheja. So your recent book about haiku was your first venture into this particular genre.
Right.
So what inspired you to explore this poetic form, and like how does it differ from your previous works?
Yeah, it differs from my previous work because earlier on I write in Hindi and English. There is no word. There are poems which are 8 lines which I've written because I wrote a poem about the emptiness of writing. So that I captured in 8 lines. And when I wrote about old age, it was long because I took the different stages. So, but when it came to haiku, I have a friend called Jitendra Kothari. So whenever I write something, I ask him what he thinks about it. So when I wrote this, he messaged me back, this is a haiku. Have you started writing haiku? I said, no, I have not started writing haiku. So then he explained to me what it is. I went and bought a couple of books. I read Basho, like I said, he's my favorite now. That time I was just beginning. And I really like the form, you know, because I'm sorry I'm throwing names, but these are the people I know. Like Meghna Gulzar said, when she read my book and she came to release it, she said, short, sweet, bitter, sour, and yet it conveys so much. So that appealed to me, I think. And it is, correct me if I'm wrong, it's about flora and fauna. And of course, then you can, like today, you can bring it anything to. So I'm very fascinated by that aspect of life. I mean, I used one in different contexts, like goldfish in a bowl, goldfish in a bowl, opened a Facebook account. She loves the spotlight. So we all go to Facebook to count the number of likes we are getting.
Hmm.
So and also if you notice a goldfish is in a bowl, which is from a transparent bowl from which you can see.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I take from everyday experiences, not all of them, but some of them, yeah.
Hmm. Right. So with that, I come to Rimi Nath and Kynpham Sing. So as editors of your upcoming book, Late Blooming Cherries, so could you share some insights into the collaborative process of compiling and editing? So also, how did you select the contribution and what criteria did you use to ensure a cohesive and resonant collection? So Rimi, why don't you start first?
To tell you about the process of compiling, most of the time, both of us made our own selections, and after that, we sat together, we read and discussed the haiku, and then came to the final decision. And we tried to include well-published haiku poets, and and also our focus while selecting was not on the poets but on the poems. And the poems have been selected primarily because of their quality, and although it can be very subjective. Thank you.
Kynpham, your take, please.
See, this book, Late Blooming Cherries, has got a very interesting origin. One day, Rimi and I are colleagues. So one day I brought a book called a haiku book called Another Country, Haiku Poetry from Wales. It was edited by Nigel Jenkins with other co-editors.
Let's try some.
And when I showed the book to Rimi, she said, I don't think we have an anthology of haiku poetry in English in India, do we? I said, no, actually, we don't. So there and then, the idea hit us, and we said to ourselves, why don't we start? We don't have, if we start an anthology of haiku poetry in English, it would be the first ever, it would be the first of its kind in India. So that galvanized us into action. I knew a few people who wrote haiku, people like Kala Ramesh and K. Ramesh. So we tried to get in touch with them. We tried to get in touch with them, talk to them. They in turn suggested other names to us. Okay, and this is the process of selection. Uh, we, as Rimi said, we thought that the process of selection should be quality. But how do we ensure this quality? How do we select qualitative poems? Um, so we adopted this particular method. We surfed the internet uh, for the most prestigious, the most well known haiku journals in the world. And there, in these journals, we found, by the way, we ourselves have been published in these journals. They are the most prominent haiku journals in the world. So we surfed the net uh, for them, and we found that there were many poets from India who were published in these journals. So that became a guideline for us. Whoever was published in these international journals, we automatically shortlisted the names. We got in touch with them. We asked them to submit their haiku to us, and we included whatever we thought uh, was was deserving to be included in such a groundbreaking anthology. And we believe that we have been quite exhaustive in our selection, because we not only relied on these international journals, we also talked to the most prominent practitioners of haiku poetry in the country, and with their help, we were able to come up with a list of 57 of the best haiku poets in India.
Hmm.
That's how we selected. Thank
That sounds, amazing. So with that, we come to the final part of this whole discussion. So I just want every one of you to share a message to your to the listeners, to the readers, on the occasion of the World Poetry Day. And with that, we can end with a short haiku note, which you can share the most impactful or the most interesting haiku that you have found in your haiku journey, and then maybe explain that. So, Dinesh, why don't we start first?
I like that Basho's silent pond, frog jumps in, splash. It's so brief, and I see that when again, it's open to interpretation, but when the frog jumps, it's like, you reach and you find your enlightenment. And, because it's all quiet, suddenly it can happen to anybody, anytime, the enlightenment. So I see it that way. So I don't know what other interpretation. I would like to hear what the others have to say.
That Kynpham Sing Nongkynrih.
You can't hear?
Hello.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Is it my turn?
yeah, please.
Okay. See, you're asking me for a message.
Yeah,
on
message to
where.
the listeners and a short haiku which had impacted you in your journey.
See, as far as poetry is concerned, Horace said, uh, "The orator is made, the poet is born." So first of all, a poet must have the talents. He, a poet must be born with the talent. But having the talent is not enough. He must hone that talent. He must sharpen the knife of his talent. And how does he do that? He does that by reading. If you want to write the best poetry, you need to read the best poetry. And when it comes to haiku poetry, I always maintain, uh, even the best of poets, you will find that even the best of poets, mainstream poets, traditional poets, do not write haiku poetry. Why? I always believe that to write haiku poetry, you need to have special sensibilities. For example, you must be able to empathize deeply, have a deep sympathy for even the most insignificant of creatures, even for inanimate objects. You must have that kind of embracing consciousness. And when you are able to do that, if you have that kind of empathy, if you are able to, if you are able to sympathize with the most insignificant of things, so what do you do? Um, in order to write an effective haiku, you must be able to make your images speak metaphorically. That is the only way how a haiku can be effective. Without that, without the images that speak, without the images that suggest deep insights, a haiku will never work. So I urge anyone who is listening to this to keep this in mind. Thank you.
Rimiji, your take.
To give a message to the listeners, I would just ask them to focus on a beautiful moment, to find beauty. As for a haiku, when you read a haiku, you have to savor it slowly. You cannot rush through it. So you have to read it slowly and try to understand the suggestiveness of it. And I think later on we can all read a few haiku. Like, should we read ours or?
Yeah, you can start.
I just needed to, I forgot the message part.
No, no
My
issues
message
with
is to
that.
the readers, please read. What's the point of writing if there are no readers? It's so difficult to publish. I do a cinema book, I'll get 10 publishers. I ask them to do a book on poetry. They say, yeah, poetry bigti nahi. You know, even the royalty, what they offer you for poetry books is different from what they offer. Like I said, if I go with a film personality book, immediately I don't even have to explain कि मैं उसमें क्या लिखने वाला हूँ. He'll just say, yeah. When can you give us? When can you deliver? Who are you planning to interview? But haiku, to some of them don't know a couple of people. Then you have to explain to them. Then you have to sell the idea to them. It's very difficult. So I feel not just haiku, even Hindi poetry, English poetry.
Right.
It's not easy to get it published.
Hmm. So we can now start with the haiku poetry recitation. So Rimiji, why don't you start first?
Okay, I'll read a few of my haiku.
Yeah.
Flooded river, the entire village rushes past, washing my face, last night's dream erased. Two flowers, a hand takes away one. Success, a lone tree standing. Forest, boundless freedom. Thank you.
Dineshji, would you like to read your haiku?
Yeah. Facing each other, facing each other, the islands kept apart by a sea of ego. Then this is just a visual. He stands on one foot. He stands on one foot, the wise and ancient yogi, the pink flamingo. A tree drops a leaf. A tree drops a leaf silently in a forest. Trees don't grieve lost leaves. And I can read some more. Okay. Two lions battle. Two lions battle for the love of the lioness. All she wants, babies. And I'll read one more. Clouds empty themselves. Clouds empty themselves into seas pregnant with hope. Clouds empty themselves into seas pregnant with hope. One empties, one fills. There are more, like I said, but I'm enough.
So now we can pass on the baton to Kynpham.
Yeah.
Kynphamji, you can take it.
Yeah, yeah. See, I will try to read very slowly because, as you must have realized, the haiku moment is over before you know it. I don't know if you have heard of a famous haiku poet, by the name of David Cobb. One of the most well-known of haiku poets in Britain. One day he won a haiku prize, and he was interviewed by a BBC radio presenter. And at the end of the interview, the presenter asked David Koff to read out his award-winning haiku. David Koff read, and the presenter said, "Is that all?" So I'm going to read. So I'm going to read very slowly.
Yeah.
I will, with your permission, I will read not only my own, but one or two from the contributors to
Yeah, please.
our anthology, Late Blooming Cherries. Earlier, I read the poem by Muskan Ahuja. This is a poem by Madhuri Pillai. She says, "Lost dog, I leave my voice in every street." And this is by another one by Muskan Ahuja. "Meeting over, all the yawns turn to applause." Another one by Amrutha Prabhu. "Neatly arranged next to a temple doormat, dirty shoes." Think about a temple doormat and think about dirty shoes. And this is a poem by K. Ramesh. He says, "Power failure. Closing the book, I listen to the rain. A yellow leaf touching the green ones on its way down." I'll read this again. This is very suggestive. A yellow leaf touching the green ones on its way down. It's, like people leaf taking. Then he says, "Dawn, amid bird calls, sound of a broom." And this is a poem by R. Suresh. "Granddaughter's birthday, the candles and cake, virtual. because it happened during the pandemic. So, granddaughter's birthday, the candles and cake virtual. This is a poem by Ram Chandran. Slurping water from the stream, the taste of mountain. Rimi has read her own, and these are some of mine. To begin with, this uh, first spring rain, the bus shelter only half finished. Another one, how hopeful to watch hip hops with falling pans doing a traditional dance. Another one, stupas of Sanchi, a monk under a tree lost in a mobile phone. Fiery pomegranate bursting with ripe seeds, earth bursting with humans. Region's backwardness explained by a road sign, slow men artwork, because a punctuation is missing. So instead of saying slow men artwork, it becomes slow men artwork. So therefore the haiku says, region's backwardness explained by a road sign, slow men artwork. So these are just some of the samples that you can find in this book of ours, Late Blooming Cherries.
So with that, we come to the end of the discussion. Thank you so much, Rimi ji, Dinesh ji, Kynpham ji, for joining us on the occasion of World Poetry Day. It was a session filled with invaluable insights and into the world of haiku, which we all are aware of. However, it was actually really underestimated. So with that, we end the session and thank you all for joining us. Thank you
I
so
would just
much.
like to say wonderful meeting all of you.
Likewise, likewise.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.